We're here with Miranda Hale. She is a rhetoric and composition teacher. How are you doing today, Miranda?
I'm good, thank you.
We'll start off. I mean, what started your passion in skepticism? What drove that? Because I don't hear a lot of so-called English teachers being involved in skepticism.
Exactly. Well, I was involved in atheism primarily before that, online, and in different sort of activism ways. And now I tend to do some of the skepticism also as the rhetoric is really what segued me into it, because we have to be effectively persuasive when we're trying to convince. That's part of atheism too, but how we go about delivering our message is important, whatever the message may be, not that there's just one. Clearly, speak clearly, use the principle of charity, don't treat your audience poorly. If you actually want to persuade them, it depends on who you're trying to persuade, whether they're on the fence or the other side, let's say, or you're preaching to the choir. So rhetoric is all about the most effective means of persuasion in any given context. And we can all use that, whether atheism, skepticism, whatever it may be.
So scientific skepticism is a kind of a subset, if you will, of skepticism in general. And this concept was debated here at a panel at TAM.
Yes.
What is your take on the term scientific skepticism?
I know a lot of my fellow people that are involved in the humanities or philosophy don't like it. Some people do. I actually really think it's a useful term to distinguish between, even though the reason they don't like it is the word science is involved in it, which seems to exclude things like the humanities and philosophy. I don't think that's the case, because I think scientific skepticism is a methodology that we use to test the world around us. If a claim is empirical, and it's basically the scientific method, but it's not just science, and we can use it. It doesn't exclude things like rhetoric or argument or whatever it is one wants to talk about. It just means the way we go about doing it. There are those of us who focus on how to communicate those things, or how to best carry out that activism or persuade. But it's not just science. It encompasses many things, but that is the reason a lot of people think that scientific skepticism only encompasses science, and they dislike that.
So you were mentioning communicating it properly, and that was part of rhetoric.
Absolutely.
How does rhetoric itself interact with skeptical activism?
Yeah, well, primarily what I've done for the JREF and for various other things too, is focused on how the things that we use as teachers, those of us who are in the classroom use as teachers, can also be applied to general skeptical activism, because part of that is so that we can share with other teachers what we do, but part of that is not everyone's a teacher or student, doesn't care about that. So we want to make sure it's actually relevant to everybody's passions, whatever it may be. So the idea of we all have an audience we're trying to address, no matter whom we are trying to address. So it can be useful to anyone involved in skeptical activism or atheist activism, because it depends on who we're trying to get our message to. And in the classroom, students are trying to just learn to persuade, especially in the classes I teach. I teach things involving, there's a lot of resistance to, there's claims made, you actually have to support them with evidence. Students often don't like that, because they want to say, I believe this, therefore it's true. And we counter that, I think, as skeptics and atheists out there, and that's a challenge too. So we have to say, no, here's what evidence is needed, here's how we judge what evidence is quality, what isn't. And it's important that you support every assertion you make. So that applies in the classroom, and I think for any of us that are involved.
Does your skepticism bleed into the classroom?
Not necessarily. I think the word skeptic can be confusing to people, and probably and that's why I believe the term scientific skepticism is not terribly old. It's basically a neologism, a phrase that was coined, I believe, in the 70s, because the word skeptic has been co-opted by so many people. Climate change deniers use it. I'm trying to think of other people that believe in the New World Order, different conspiracy theories use it. So the scientific skepticism, the term was coined basically to differentiate that from things like what the JRF does, and things like just involving empirical claims, questioning those, and how we communicate those. So I tend to not bring it into the classroom though, but subtly. It's not that it needs to be smuggled in, but just the idea of, it's important to support your claims, state them clearly, and if we, do that effectively, students will maybe start to question their own claims, the claims of authors, and anything else.
So probably a little bit off topic, but you've written pieces in the past about the Catholic religion.
Yes.
I personally went to Catholic school until I was in 5th grade, so I have at least some vested interest in the answer to this question.
Absolutely.
I mean, and I wasn't ingrained in the religion that some people do as they become adults. So I don't have this particular experience. But how do Catholics deal with the guilt that's inherent in Catholicism?
I don't know that some of us, I don't think it's possible to fully rid oneself of it, depending on how serious and intense your childhood was, your childhood religious indoctrination was. I think it's almost like there's a part of our brains that are unreachable. I mean, not literally a part of our brain, but there's an emotional area, or I guess I would call it that no matter how reasonable we are, educated we are, how strong of an atheist we are, there's still that part of our brain that will often come back to the Catholic guilt, those kind of issues. And we know that's ridiculous because we're not going to hell. We know there's not a hell. But we still, sometimes worry about those kind of things. I think that's a common experience for Catholics. We don't necessarily let it limit what we do or, change our behavior, but we feel guilty about it for no reason whatsoever.